I've tried to stop complaining about MCU Spider-Man. I made a 16-minute video more than complaining about how I feel about this character. I've already established I don't like this version of the character. I not only think he's a terrible character, but I think he's a horrible adaptation of Spider-Man. In fact, I personally believe he's one of the worst adaptations of Spider-Man ever. Maybe, just maybe, the actual worst. But I've already explained why I think he's a bad adaptation, and one day when I talk about Far From Home, I might explain why I think he's a terrible character, but whatever. So, however, today, we had some bad news. Now, we already knew that Alfred Molina was going to be in this movie, which had me worried, but I figured they wouldn't have him be Ock from Raimi's. I figured they would at least make him a multiverse version of Otto, because that makes more sense. And yeah, they do have that, only this multiverse Otto is Raimi's Otto, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. It's actually mind-blowing how stupid this actually is. I already didn't like MCU Spider-Man's movies. Homecoming was very mediocre, with some very stupid things in it that I very much disagree with, and Far From Home is straight up terrible. It's an awful adaptation of Spider-Man, and it's an honestly awful film. However, Far From Home and Homecoming, at the very least, don't affect the Raimi films and the Webb films. It's still its own franchise. It's a terrible franchise, Far From Home is awful, and Homecoming is not very good either. But at least it's its own franchise. Now it's affecting the Raimi films, which is terrible. All this does is make me hate these movies more and make me not want to see the third one even more. The third one already has enough plot holes, guys, from that ending in Far From Home. We don't need you ruining character arcs as well. That's 100% what this is as well. If Doc Ock does come back and he's alive, which he will be, and he does continue his story, which he will, that's already confirmed, that's terrible. That actually is really annoying because his journey now is incomplete. That moment in Spider-Man 2 is now not going to feel as nearly impactful. I mean, a multiverse version of him wouldn't have made any sense because if he's a doppelganger, why aren't the Peter Parkers? I get that wouldn't make any sense, but at the same time, I'd prefer that than to just have the Raimi come back and completely ruin his arc. I can't even begin to explain how truly amazed I am that they actually are doing this. It actually really shocks me. I cannot actually believe this is an idea they're actually going through with. Now, just to clarify for some people, because I know I've been rambling for the past few minutes, Alfred Molina was in an interview and he confirmed that when he comes back in Spider-Man 3, he will be playing the original Otto from Raimi Spider-Man 2. Now, let me just say, I know people are going to say this, so I'm just going to clarify. I have nothing against Alfred Molina. I think he's a legend. I also have nothing personal against John Watts. I hate his Spider-Man movies, but I have nothing personal against him. Just wanted to clarify, because I know some Spider-Man fans out there can't handle it when I criticize, so just throwing that out there. That being said, I'm not even joking. I think this is the fattest L the MCU Spider-Man movies have taken. And trust me, I think they've taken some pretty fat L's. In Homecoming, with the very weak characterization around, the characters and Peter Parker being a not very good adaptation of Spider-Man, to Far From Home, where Peter Parker was an awful character, an awful adaptation of Spider-Man, and where Mysterio was a villain who was pretty stupid and thought that destroying London will be forgotten.
When its new savior descends, all those casualties will be forgotten. All those casualties will be forgotten.
All those casualties will be forgotten.
Obviously, that was a very logical conclusion. I mean, remember Civil War, where everyone completely forgot about the casualties at Lagos? Yes, totally logical conclusion. Mysterio is 110% not an idiot.
All those casualties will be forgotten.
So yeah, the point is, I think Spider-Man, MCU specifically, has taken some pretty fat L's. These movies specifically took some very fat L's with Spider-Man, Mysterio, and in general, just as movies, they were kind of L's. But this is the biggest. See, Mysterio being an idiot who thinks destroying London will be forgotten,
all those casualties will be forgotten.
That doesn't affect the Raimi movies or the Webb movies. Alfred Molina as the original Doc Ock coming into this movie does affect the Raimi movies and how they make me feel. Yes, I still really like Spider-Man 2, but now when I watch Doc Ock's death scene, I'm not gonna feel the same impact because this movie says, hey, he survived, because why not? That doesn't change anything about Spider-Man 2, right? No, it does. It makes that sacrificial death way less impactful.
Brilliant but lazy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks, Ock. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have issues with Ock and Rami too. In fact, I have a lot of issues with Spider-Man 2. I still really like the film overall and I think it's good, but I do have issues, especially with Doc Ock. He inconsistently acts stupid, like when he throws the car at Peter. Or when he dangles Harry off a roof, only to get him to make a deal, even though if he kept dangling him, he could have probably gotten what he wanted without having to do anything.
You're a hack! Stop! Stop! Alright. Put me down. We'll make a deal.
But you know, he's kind of an idiot, even though he was also a genius. Things like that. Ock at times just kind of really stupid for no reason other than plot convenience, like it just has to happen so the plot can keep happening, which doesn't exactly work. In fact, I don't think it ever works. However, his character as a whole and his journey was still okay, and his actual sacrifice was still very touching and very tragic. I'll definitely clown on how stupid and lazy some of those plot holes are, like the tentacle blade, and how he gets around without police finding him, and how stupid he is throwing a car at Peter Parker when he doesn't know he's Spider-Man. Things like that. I'll definitely always clown on those, but his actual sacrifice was still very tragic and sad. It was a good sacrifice. I think it was one of the best sacrifices in any superhero film. However, if this film brings him back, even if he's a good guy, it completely undermines that sacrifice. First of all, bringing him back as a good guy opens up a plot hole because the inhibitor chip gave him the ability to control the arms. But unless those things only take 5 minutes to make, which I highly doubt, he's not going to be able to control the arms. The arms are still controlling him. Yes, he was able to control him for a few minutes and make a sacrifice, but I highly doubt in those few seconds he was able to figure out how to completely control his arms perfectly. At some point, they're going to keep taunting him and keep talking to him, and he's probably going to turn evil again. That doesn't make sense unless he can make another inhibitor chip in 5 seconds, which I don't think he can do. And if he's a villain, it's 10 times worse. While yes, I don't think him being a villain opens up any plot holes, at least none that I can think of, but that makes his sacrifice even more pointless. What was the point of him redeeming himself if he goes right back to being a villain in the next one? That beautiful moment right here?
You once spoke to me about intelligence, that it was a gift to be used for the good of mankind.
A privilege.
These things have turned you into something you're not. Don't listen to them.
It was my dream.
Sometimes, to do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams.
I will not die a monster.
You know, that was pretty good writing, but hear me out. Maybe we bring him back for the next one and make him a villain. Splendid. Do you see what I mean yet? What's the point of I will not die a monster if he's just gonna sacrifice himself only to come back and be a villain again? Forgive me for even suggesting this, but in my eyes, that's just not a very satisfying conclusion. Wouldn't it be more satisfying if Ock died sacrificing himself, taking his dream with him? It's tragic, but it works a lot better, doesn't it? Am I crazy? Like, please, don't tell me I'm crazy. I don't think I'm crazy for thinking this. At the end of the day, it feels like it's unnecessary. Doc Ock's story from the Rami movies was ended. Why not just get a new Dr. Octopus? Even if it was a doppelganger, because I love Alfred Molina, and seeing him play Dr. Octopus again would be really cool. And if you make it a doppelganger, fine. It's an issue, it doesn't really make sense, but I'll accept that more than I will just completely ruining this arc. Or just cast a new actor to be the MCU Dr. Octopus while still having Jamie Foxx's Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man. That would work a lot better, or at least I personally think it would. I just don't get it, man. Why do these movies like torturing me so much? At this point, I honestly have no idea if it's even possible for me to enjoy an MCU Spider-Man anything. I mean, right now, there are several plot holes with the third movie already that I don't think they can possibly correct just because of that Far From Home end credit scene. Peter's gonna be a fugitive in the film, even though there's proof that Beck did it. For one thing, anyone on the planet can just search up Quentin Beck and find out he was a Stark employee, therefore proving that he lied about being from another planet. Also, there are webbed up drones, meaning Spider-Man was fighting them, meaning he wasn't controlling them. Anyone can see them. Also, Talos is pretending to be Nick Fury running S.H.I.E.L.D. He can just have his back. SHIELD should have his back. When Mysterio was fighting the Elementals, they went and they decloaked. Flash was live streaming. There's evidence that Peter could use, but he just isn't because we have to have this forced drama. And hey, it'd be good if it was executed well, but I already just pointed out some plot holes and ways Peter can fix this. Doc Ock being here only adds on to that. Am I saying MCU Spider-Man 3 is going to be automatically terrible? No. I don't know. I haven't seen the film. I'm just making an observation about how messy it is. Or at least how messy it's looking. You got the Peter Fugitive storyline with big plot holes I just pointed out. And even more if you think about how Beck even made that video. And you've also got this weird multiverse storyline with Electro and Dr. Octopus. It just doesn't look like it fits in coherently. And it does have me worried about how messy the film will be. And the way they set up this fugitive arc is so bad that it's already harmed the next film in a few ways. As I said, they created plot holes and contrivances and it's not working. And now they're adding Dr. Octopus in the mix from the Rami movies. I'm just not a big fan of it personally. I really can't get behind the idea of bringing Dr. Octopus back. I think his character should just stay dead. I mean, I love Alfred Molina, and I'd love to see him play Doc Ock again. Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense, and I acknowledge that, and I would probably criticize that. But, I mean, if you're gonna bring him back, just have him be a multiverse version. Anything but Rami Ock. Just keep Rami Ock dead. His journey is complete. There's no reason to bring him back. Those are just my general thoughts on the news, though. If you're genuinely excited about this, then keep being excited about it. Don't let me ruin that for you. Have fun being excited, and I hope you enjoy it. I just personally don't think I possibly can, at least with this. I might enjoy the actual film. I probably won't, but I might. But I don't think I can ever really enjoy the actual Dr. Octopus aspect, depending on how large it is. But what are your thoughts on this scene? I'm genuinely curious what everyone thinks. I've seen pretty mixed reactions on Twitter and Instagram, so I'm curious what you all think.
All those casualties will be forgotten.